I was standing in line at the grocery store, mindlessly scrolling through my phone while the cashier rang up the person ahead of me when the notification appeared. A credit alert. My heart did a small flip because I hadn't made any large purchases recently. I tapped it open and felt the floor drop out from under me. Hard inquiry on my credit report. New auto loan opened. Amount financed. $48,000. My hand started shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my phone. The woman behind me asked if I was okay, but I couldn't answer. I was staring at the details, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Citizens Bank. Ford F-150. Loan term 72 months. First payment due in 30 days. None of it made sense. I drove a 12-year-old Toyota. I hadn't been to a dealership. I hadn't applied for anything. I abandoned my cart right there in the checkout line and walked out to my car. Sat in the driver's seat with my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to control my breathing. Then I saw the second notification. A charge on my credit card for $3,500 from a dealership 2 hours away. Down payment. Someone had used my card for a down payment on a truck I'd never authorized. I called the dealership with trembling fingers. The salesman who answered was cheerful and congratulations until I told him I hadn't bought anything. There was a long pause. Then he said that couldn't be right. He'd handled the sale personally yesterday. Young man, early 30s, had all the proper documentation. Even mentioned it was a surprise gift from his mom who was helping with financing. He'd seemed nervous, but excited about his first new truck. The description matched my son Marcus perfectly, down to the nervous energy and the story about his mother helping him. But what I discovered when I confronted him made me realize this betrayal went so much deeper than I could have imagined. I sat in that parking lot trying to convince myself there was another explanation. Marcus was 31 and still living in my basement, still between jobs, still figuring his life out. I'd been a single mother since his father left when he was 4, and I'd built my entire existence around giving my son opportunities. Worked double shifts, skipped vacations, co-signed loans he defaulted on that I'd quietly paid off because that's what mothers do. At 56, I'd finally achieved stability. Small house in Pennsylvania, paid off. Savings account that actually had money in it. My AARP membership that made me feel like a real adult with retirement plans and resources. And now someone had destroyed all of that in one afternoon. I drove straight home. Found Marcus in the basement playing video games in his pajamas at 3 in the afternoon. The rage that hit me was blinding. I showed him everything, the alerts, the loan details, the credit card charge. Watched his face for guilt. Instead, I saw confusion. Then panic. Then tears. He swore he didn't know what I was talking about. Showed me his phone's location history. He'd been home all day. Showed me the pizza delivery receipt timestamped from yesterday afternoon. He hadn't been at any dealership 2 hours away. He begged me to believe him, and God help me, I did. Because my son was many things. Irresponsible, unmotivated, disappointing, but he'd never been a good liar. That's when he said it. There was one person who could pass for him, who knew everything about us, who'd had access to my entire house, my documents, my life. His cousin Jake, my sister's son, who I'd raised for 2 years after she died, who I treated like a second son, who knew where I kept everything, including the notebook in my desk where I'd written down my AARP login because I could never remember passwords. We found Jake at his apartment, and the look on his face when he opened the door told me everything. Not surprise. Resignation. He let us in and started talking before we even asked, like he'd been carrying this weight and was almost relieved to put it down. He'd been planning it for months. Photographed my AARP login from that notebook during Christmas dinner. Used it to access all my documents, social security number, date of birth, everything. The truck wasn't even the worst of it. He'd opened 4 credit cards in my name over 6 months. Taken out a $15,000 personal loan. Filed a fraudulent tax return. The truck was just the piece too big to hide. Marcus was shaking beside me, rage pouring off him. He asked why. Why would Jake do this to me? To us. To the woman who'd taken him in and loved him. Jake's answer was quiet and devastating. He said I'd never really loved him. I treated him like an obligation, a charity case, a reminder of my dead sister. Every kindness had felt like pity. Every gesture had reminded him he wasn't really my son. The accusation cut deep because part of it was true. I had felt obligated. But I tried my best with a grieving teenager while raising my own struggling son. And this was the payment? Financial destruction? Stolen identity. Then he told us who'd really planned everything, and I understood this wasn't just about money. It was about revenge. Jake wasn't alone. My sister's ex-husband Richard, Jake's father who'd been absent his entire life, had orchestrated the whole thing. He'd reconnected with Jake a year ago, filled his head with lies about how I destroyed their family, turned my sister against him, ruined Jake's life. Richard had coached him on the identity theft, promised to split everything 50-50, and turn my nephew into a weapon against me. None of Richard's story was true. My sister had left him because he was abusive. But Jake had been 13 when she died, barely remembered the real reasons, and Richard had exploited that gap to create a monster. We called the police from Jake's apartment. I pressed charges even though it shattered me. Marcus held my hand while we gave statements, both of us losing family in real time. Jake was the closest thing Marcus had to a sibling. My sister had been dead 7 years, but losing her son felt like losing her again. The investigation moved fast. Police found Richard in a motel with files full of my information, step-by-step plans, even a fake ID with Jake's photo and my address. The man had been obsessed with hurting me for years, had waited until Jake was vulnerable enough to manipulate. Richard got 7 years. Jake took a plea deal for 4 years plus restitution he'd never be able to pay. The truck was repossessed. The accounts were closed. My credit dropped to the 400s, but at least the debt wasn't legally mine. The surprising thing was Marcus. He changed. Got serious about his life in a way I'd never seen. Got a steady IT job, moved into his own apartment, started paying bills on time. He told me later that watching what Jake did had terrified him, had shown him what happened when you let resentment poison your life, when you blamed everyone else for your problems. He'd been heading down that same path. We had hard conversations during those 14 months while the legal process ground forward. I admitted maybe I had treated Jake differently, that my love had always been tinged with obligation. Marcus admitted he'd taken advantage of my love for years. We rebuilt our relationship on honesty instead of guilt and dependency. The financial recovery took longer. Disputing accounts, changing every password, locking down every piece of information. AARP's identity theft insurance actually helped cover costs, which felt grimly ironic. The membership Jake exploited to destroy me became my best resource for recovery. I'm 58 now, 2 years past the worst of it. Credit score back up to 600 and climbing. Marcus thriving in his own life. We have dinner every other week and actually talk. I think about Jake sometimes, wonder if prison is teaching him anything. I think about Richard and feel nothing but cold satisfaction. You know, if you're listening to this and you've ever helped raise someone else's child, ever taken in family out of obligation, I see you. It's complicated. You do your best. Sometimes your best isn't enough. Sometimes people twist your kindness into something ugly. That doesn't mean you were wrong to try. I still have that AARP card with its new security features. Keep it in my wallet as a reminder that the tools we use to build security can also destroy it. That family is supposed to protect you, but sometimes family is what you need protection from. That trust is beautiful and necessary and dangerous all at once. Marcus asked me recently if I regretted helping Jake after my sister died. I said no. At the time, it was the right thing to do. You can't live your life afraid of betrayal. You just have to be smart about it. Trust but verify. Love but maintain boundaries. Be kind without being foolish. The truck was auctioned off for Richard's restitution. I hope whoever bought it never knows the story behind it. I'm back to driving my old Camry. It's not exciting, but it's mine. Really mine. Paid for with my own money, in my own name, with no ghosts attached. And after everything, that's more than enough. Subscribe for more stories about the messy, complicated truth of family. Like if this reminded you that even in betrayal, there can be unexpected redemption. Share it as a reminder to guard your information and your heart. And in the comments, tell me this. What's one boundary you've had to set with family? You're not alone in that struggle. Let's start the conversation below.